Spider-Man. A character with many a rundown apartment that he can barely afford, huh? It's part of what makes him so relatable. Because haven't we all been there? I know I've been in a small apartment struggling to make ends meet before, just like everyone's favorite webhead. But it's still home, right? It's still a place where you can unwind, peel off the old Spidey costume. That is, until one of your greatest foes ends up figuring out where you live and pays you a little visit in the night. Now, if you haven't already, I suggest you go back and watch my Spider-Man Beat a Villain with the Power of Love video before this, since it adds a little context to the beginning of the story. You see, Ben Reilly, now New York's one true Spider-Man, had just gotten finished knocking the socks off of the villain known as Carrion, and allowing the walking plague to impart enough grief into Ben's psyche to make him feel like he was drowning. So, given his murderous history, remember me, Carrion? Why aren't these police officers already dead?
Spider-Man, my old enemy.
No, he's my friend. He tried to help me.
I despise you!
Some sparks of Malcolm's consciousness must be alive in there, struggling to keep Carrion in check. Keep fighting, Malcolm. Don't let him control you. I don't want Carrion to kill anyone, but I need him to... You don't need him. He's a disease, eating away at you. But don't you see? Carrion, he protects me. I'll protect you. I'll keep you safe. No, I'll never survive without him. I'll never... Malcolm,
He's gone! Do you understand now, Spider-Man? I haven't forced my way back. He invited me!
I feel his hand on me and wait for my flesh to burn. But it's not my body he's after. It's my mind. A telepathic flood of grief. A tsunami of unbearable sorrow. I'm drowning. Is it my grief or Malcolm's? My sorrow or his? I'm drowning! My psyche fragments like a shattered mirror. The pieces float away. No. I'm drowning! No! Stay the hell out of my head! Easy, Reilly. Take a breath. Don't react. Think! If Carrion wanted you dead, you'd be dead. And those cops would be too. But it's not death he's after. It's the emotions. The grief. He's in pain. And he can't bear it. Can't contain it. So, he's sharing it. In the only way he knows how. What is it, Malcolm? What hurt you so much that you had to call Carrion out to protect you? Show me, Malcolm. Show me! It's a terrible risk, opening my mind like this, allowing him in. But if he's suffering, if I can help him... No! This is too much! It's worth it. Let it in. All of it. Too much! For Malcolm's sake. Let it in. Thank you. Beatrice McBride was the only family Malcolm had. The one person on Earth who unconditionally loved and accepted him, despite Carrion's unspeakable sins. When he lost her, he lost everything. And it broke him. That's why you needed Carrion. To release your grief into the world. Make the pain go away. But I learned a long time ago that avoidance doesn't work. Because if you deny the grief, Malcolm, you also deny the love. It was a rough fight for the web-slinger, and his mask wasn't the only thing to come out of it damaged. We start the issue at the Ravencroft Institute, a home for the criminally insane that's bent on rehabilitating the villains that Spider-Man drops on their front door. Think Arkham, but toned way down. Dr. Ashley Kafka, a woman devoted to the healing of the people society most often deems irreparable, as well as an ally to Peter Parker in the past, informs Ben that Carrion, known as Malcolm McBride when he isn't killing with a mere touch, is in safe hands, and is being given medication to keep him from transforming again. Ben scoffs at this, asking if shoving a pill down his throat will really make all his problems disappear. making Ashley wonder aloud if Spidey's sudden edge might be an after effect of letting Carrion into his head, or maybe there might be something else wrong. They're interrupted by two doctors, one of whom, Edward Whelan, is immediately recognized by Ben as one of Spider-Man's former villains, the man-rat known as Vermin, that caused enough havoc that both Spider-Man and Captain America had to bring him down the last time he went haywire. It seems as though Kafka has cured him, but Ben just isn't buying it. Ben even asks if they plan on drugging Malcolm for the rest of his life to keep him from becoming Carrion again. But Leo stops this line of thinking, informing Ben that their goal is simply to help Malcolm reach a better mental state so that they can begin therapy. They really are determined to heal those former villains, a commitment a lot of people in the Marvel Universe might feel as a useless task. Edward cuts in, telling Spider-Man that it's not really the physical transformation they need to cure, that Malcolm's key to help is in his mind, to make sure the monster never returns. All Ben can think of is Vermin, and even states aloud that Edward of all people should know, the monsters always come back. He realizes immediately what he's done, and tries to take it back, and Dr. Kafka quickly gets him out of the situation with an invitation to her office and a cup of coffee. Ben thinks to himself, the way I'm feeling right now, I don't think a gallon of coffee could help. Kafka and Ben talk. With so many homicidal maniacs locked up here at Ravencroft, my spider sense is buzzing so hard I'm getting a migraine.
Dr. Liu has been a valuable addition to our staff. He's one of the top criminal psychologists in the country, and...
And what? The two of you are going to cure them all? Come on, Doc. You know that's not the way it works with these supervillains.
Supervillain is a convenient and fairly toxic way to label a human being. And you didn't see Carrion as a villain today. You could have kept beating Malcolm senseless, but instead, you showed him compassion. Which is exactly what I'm trying to do here. Most of these people have had difficult lives, endured extreme trauma and abuse that's twisted their souls. But if I can help them to even begin to move beyond their trauma, well, the potential for healing is monumental.
You talking about them? Or me?
To what do I owe the honor of this revelation?
Don't pretend to be surprised. I know Peter told you everything. And I'm glad you were able to help him work through all the craziness he's been dealing with. Peter and MJ wouldn't have been able to get on with their lives, make the move to Portland without you. But I'm not Peter Parker. I don't need anyone rooting around in my head. Believe me, Doctor, it's not a pleasant place.
People are often afraid of therapy before they try it, Benjamin, but...
No. Look, I've got to go. Thanks for the coffee, Doc.
I get it. You don't need a head shrinker. But how about a friend?
I don't do friendship.
We'll see.
Ben heads home, has a rough night trying to sleep, and heads to his job at the Daily Grind, where he has an odd interaction with a customer known as John Diaz, who our blonde webhead says is pretty likable in his own incredibly awkward way. And as John leaves, Ben has a similar interaction with his boss, Shirley, to the one he had with Dr. Kafka. She says he can't go on living his life walled off like this, and that everybody needs friends, which just kind of gets under Ben's skin in a way. He finishes his shift and hopes for a good night's sleep, but ooh boy, he did not know what was coming when he got home to his apartment. Shirley's a good woman. She treats me with respect, pays me more than the job is worth, but she's big on doling out advice. I know she means well, but it gets under my skin sometimes. So I just smile, nod, and then mop up the vomit in the bathroom. When my shift's over, I head home, pick at some questionable leftovers, and then spend hours trying and failing to fall asleep. Maybe it's just the after effects of letting Carrion in my head. Or maybe it's what Shirley and Dr. Kafka said. Maybe I do need friends. Maybe I can't go on living my life walled off? Damn roaches! Bad enough when they're crawling up the walls, but when they get into my bed, that's... Wait, that's not a roach. That's a... scorpion. Hope I didn't wake you, Spider-Man. Scorpion smashes his tail through Ben's bed, as we get the blonde webhead's future retelling of events to Dr. Kafka. Between the all-night partiers, the sanitation guys who think 3 a.m. is the perfect time to start banging trash cans, and the stray cats who like to perform arias on my fire escape, getting a good night's sleep in my neighborhood isn't exactly easy. And it's even harder when a murderous supervillain magically appears in your bedroom. He half quips, remembering vividly how his spider sense didn't even tingle, despite the danger at the time. How Scorpion revealed that he knew everything about Ben Reilly being Spider-Man, and how the villain threw his Spidey costume down on the floor like a gauntlet, challenging him to give chase as he fled across the rooftops. Kafka asks if Ben was sure it was Scorpion. Maybe it was just someone wearing his costume. But Ben cuts her off, admitting that while his time as Peter felt like a dream, once he'd found out he was a clone, he never forgot a single detail. That was Mac Gargan, all right. Scorpion leads Spidey on a chase through Manhattan, out to Queens, and all the while Ben couldn't help but feel furious. He had just gotten back to New York a couple months ago. He was just starting to put down roots and build a life for himself. And here comes a costumed maniac to invade his apartment, his life, tearing down the wall between Ben Reilly and Spider-Man. He wants to peel Gargan out of that suit, bash his smug face in, but all that rage turns to ice-cold fear as he realizes where he's being led. That stadium is where my worst nightmare began. When I was a kid, my Uncle Ben took me for a few games there. I didn't know the first thing about baseball, and I cared even less. But having a day alone with my uncle, that was the best. Those memories meant the world to me, and Miles Warren poisoned them. It's interesting that he used the name Jackal, because that's exactly what he was. A sneering, manipulative predator who used Gwen Stacy, used me, and blew my world to pieces. After that night, when I faced my double, I was convinced that I wasn't Peter Parker, that I was a worthless copy, a clone. That's when Ben Reilly was born. Once a place of comfort, this stadium being where Uncle Ben had taken him to a few games. Now a horrific reminder of the life that was stolen from him by Miles Warren 5 years ago. And Ben admits that there was a moment where he really did fear that Peter Parker was there in the stands, ready to take his life away again. As the superpowers brawl, Kafka asks if perhaps Scorpion had some dealings with the Jackal. But Ben is skeptical. He's pretty sure Mac Gargan never had any dealings with Warren. But then again, in his line of work, there are always conspiracies brewing behind the scenes. Kafka says he sounds paranoid. As Spider-Man recollects how he hammered into Scorpion, he shoots back that he had good reason to be paranoid. Scorpion tells him to fight back, to show him what he's made of. And that really pisses the web-slinger off. He screams that this isn't a game, as he haymakers the villain into the stands. He demands to know who sent Scorpion, how he knows who Ben is, where he lives, all while he tells the good doctor how he felt like a wounded soldier returning from war, only to be swept right back onto the battlefield. How he was anxious, angry, confused, disoriented. It was like the past had its hands on his throat, strangling him. Kafka informs him that it sounds like PTSD to her, and Reilly doesn't argue. He says he just wanted it to end. But it didn't. Scorpion sneers that the masked hero won't find any answers today, and propels them out of the stadium together, right into a packed residential neighborhood. And a Scorpion came at me, over and over, and I hit back harder and harder. I couldn't help wondering if this is the way it was always going to be. The same old tired game. I take out the bad guy. He returns looking for revenge. I stop him again. If this is the life I've come back to, then I was better off on the road. Anonymous. Alone. A mom and her kids come outside to see what's making all the noise, and come face to face with a duo's battle. And as Spider-Man puts it, Scorpion did what his kind always does. He endangers innocent lives. He lifts a car with his tail, and Ben taunts him, both trying to throw the villain off guard, and hopefully getting him to not throw a car through a house. But it's a futile effort. Gargan shouts that he isn't aiming for Spider-Man, and hurls the 2-ton vehicle not at the web-slinger, but at the family standing right behind him. Reilly leaps into action, throwing himself between the car and the innocent people, causing him to get crunched between the splintering wood of the home's front porch and the metal casing of the vehicle barreling directly into his chest. But Dr. Kafka applauds him, says he did what he always does. He saved them, even possibly at the cost of his own life, as we see Scorpion loom over the splayed body of the webbed vigilante. And he says something a little strange.
These people, they're so ordinary, so unbearably flawed. Even if they lived 1,000 years, they would never amount to anything. So tell me, why do you do it? Put your very existence on the line, again and again, to protect them.
When Spider-Man came to, Scorpion was long gone. After all that, he let him live? It made no sense. The Doctor pokes at Gargan's words, trying to dissect what he meant, and Ben admits that it didn't really sound like the foe he'd known all these years. And when Kafka tries to read further into it, make a psychoanalysis on Reilly, he shuts her down as fast as he can, confronting her about the fact that 2 of her inmates had escaped in the last 48 hours. What kind of security did they have here? But Dr. Kafka says Mac didn't escape. In fact, he's been in his cell this whole time, without his suit. Reilly says that's impossible, but immediately jumps to a villain he knows can change their face, the Chameleon. But no luck there either. He's in such bad shape, he'd be lucky to even make it out of his cell without having a breakdown. If not Scorpion, not Chameleon, then who? Ben tries to leave Ravencroft, but stops when he comes across Edward Whelan again. He startles the Doctor, making the poor guy drop a whole load of papers everywhere. Spidey helps out for a minute, grabbing up handfuls of documents and awkwardly apologizing for snapping at him earlier. He says that Dr. Whelan didn't deserve it, that he's come so far, and the Doctor graciously accepts the apology, telling the web-slinger that he can call him Edward. Ben gets a little flustered and makes a quick exit, saying to himself after the fact that Edward seems like a good person, someone he could call a friend, if he was the kind of guy who made friends. We cut to a different scene, however, very far removed from the normal Spidey shenanigans. Just 2 women chatting with a fantastic view of the Brooklyn Bridge. They're letting out their insecurities about online dating, and seem to be hitting it off fairly well. But things quickly take a turn towards the bizarre, and then straight into horror. The blonde woman's hand mutates, disfigures, and despite the fact that we can't see what's happening to her, the other woman's look of terror is all we need to know that whatever this shape-shifting creature is, it sure isn't pretty. And just like that, she's gone. Now only one figure stands beneath the Brooklyn Bridge, clearly unfazed by the carnage it had just caused. The scene fades out, and we're once again following Ben Reilly, somberly standing before his childhood home, a place he once shared with Uncle Ben and Aunt May, 2 wonderful people that were no longer a part of his life. I don't know what I'm doing here at the old house. Peter and MJ are in Portland. Aunt May is gone, and the place is empty. I guess they'll sell it eventually. But I'm glad it's still there. Still ours. Ours? Maybe it belongs to them, but not to me. Not anymore. So many memories of May and Uncle Ben. The 2 finest people I've ever known. And yet, I spent 5 years thinking that I didn't really know them. That those precious memories were implanted. Lies. And in some ways, they are. They feel like dreams, fragments of a past life. And maybe it's better this way, because some of those memories are too awful to bear. What am I doing here? Is it nostalgia? Grief? Or maybe I'm here to finally close the book. If I'm ever going to create a life for myself as Ben Reilly, I can't keep holding on to the past. I have to let it go. And with that, the issue ends. It's sad, it's bitter, but I also think it's a little hopeful. There's still a mystery afoot. Ben seems to be opening up to the idea of making new friends and hey, maybe getting some much-needed therapy. And we got a glimpse of what this new shape-shifting villain might be up to. Stay tuned, true believers, because I'll be covering issue 3 of Spider-Man: The Humanity Agenda soon. I really hope you enjoy this little comic synopsis, and I sincerely hope you stick around for more from yours truly. Though before we head out, I'd like to thank Queen Crimson, Serenity, Roderick Hare, Alex the Awesome, Super 8-Bitable, Ubeck, and Caroline Crimson for becoming members of the channel. I can't thank you guys enough for sending a little something my way to help me out with maybe, possibly, hopefully doing this little YouTube thing full-time in the near future. With that being said, I hope you have a wonderful night, and this is the Synth Voice Network, signing off as usual.